Let's spend some time now with someone who knows the impeachment process pretty well. He introduced articles of impeachment against President George W. Bush. He's Dennis Kucinich, former U.S. Representative for 16 years from Ohio, candidate for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2004 and 2008. He joins us from Cleveland. Dennis, what's your reaction to the public testimony of Gordon Sondland?
Well, you know, in a way, it's been conflicted. When he first started talking to congressional investigators, he said one thing. In a way, he's been on both sides of the fence. The question is whether he had a direct phone call with the president on the issue of a quid pro quo. So I don't know. I think it's still up in the air. My concern is that, what this is really about is the president's ability to set policies with respect to Russia, because you've got the CIA in an unprecedented effort to try to use their power to knock out a president. And you've got the Democrats setting what I think is an unfortunate precedent. In the case of President Trump, they're lowering the bar for impeachment. This is going to haunt Vice President Biden. It could haunt Hillary Clinton and others. It's very destructive. It's horrible for the country. We have a hyper-partisanship right now. The things that need to get done for the American people, the people are concerned about their health care, about more jobs, repairing the infrastructure, taking care of the education of our children. They're concerned about peace. The environment is the issue. We're squandering time. Let the people make the choice in 2020, Larry, and they will do that.
So you think this is really going nowhere?
Well, I mean, politically, it's repolarizing the country. But let's look at the numbers in the House. Do the Democrats have the votes for an impeachment of President Trump? They probably do. Do they have are the votes there in the Senate? No. So where's it going? What you're doing is you're causing the Americans to turn against each other. Everywhere you go, there's arguments about this. I mean, we need to remember who we are as Americans. We need to find those things that can unify us again. Yes, we have a president who's been divisive. I got that. I don't know him, Larry. He's not somebody I'm acquainted with, other than what I have seen, as we all have on the media. But I know the country, and the country wants a government to try to get past the partisan differences and do something. And right now we're squandering time. We're losing a lot of opportunities to address some of the big issues of our time, particularly with respect to the environment. I fear for future generations and their lives if we don't start to use this valuable time to come up with ways of averting a catastrophe with respect to the global environment.
All right, let's go to some other bases. What did you make of what President Obama said the other day, issuing a warning to get too progressive with the left, urging them to steer center?
Well, I used to have to defend President Obama. People would call him a socialist. And I would say people who call President Obama a socialist don't know anything about socialism or President Obama. President Obama came to office with the help of Wall Street. He helped to facilitate, through cooperation with John McCain and President Bush, the bailout. The Wall Street made out okay after the subprime meltdown. Main Street, not so good. Here in Cleveland, Ohio, we had tens of thousands of homes that were in jeopardy because of the practices of the banks. I mean, Barack Obama has an approach to politics, which is, I suppose for the most part, fairly mainstream. But the big vision that people assumed that he'd bring to the presidency was not followed by a commensurate course of action, such as, we could look back in history and look at FDR. Now, granted, at one point he didn't have the Senate, but, for a while he had some votes. He could have done something. And unfortunately, I think he lost some opportunities.
Can we say that he disappointed you?
It's not that whether he disappointed me or not. I mean, he and I worked together on a number of things. We didn't work together on a number of wars. But the Democratic Party needs to unify. We have a party that's fractured. It's an association of different groups that really need to have more in common and find their commonalities. And this would be a good time to start to do that. But not just to rally in opposition to the current president, but to rally for the proposal of the future of the country and for all Americans, whatever their party is. So I'm not particularly happy at seeing this polarization and this hyperpartisanship. I think what we have, Larry, is a breakdown of the two-party system, and we could see in a future election a more of an independent force rising up in America to kind of claim the mantle of the people while the two parties are arguing with each other.
What did you think when Trump pulled troops out of Syria?
I agreed with that. Look, I was opposed to the U.S. policy of basically funding a lot of these disparate groups who came into Syria from all over the region to try to overthrow the government and establish a caliphate in Damascus. That was wrong, wrong, wrong. And, I think that's another reason why President Trump is under attack, because there are people who have a vested interest in the continued instability of the region and in usurping the government in Damascus. Now, to me, that's not what America should be about. We shouldn't be looking for dragons to slay around the world. We should be focusing on this country and our needs in this country, and not on trying to knock off governments in various parts of the world. That was never the intention in the formation of this country, and we need to get back to some basic principles of what it means to have a nation instead of this knocking heads as partisans, further dividing a country where there is, believe it or not, an underlying unity in America. I saw it when I ran twice. And I see people are looking for ways to close ranks as Americans again, instead of going through this on and on and on. People just vilifying each other based on political party or what your opinion has to be at the moment. That's not good for America. We need to remember who we are as Americans and look at our basic values that brought the country to formation, and just stop this incessant hyperpartisanship.
Do you see any candidate in your party for next year that can bring that about?
I don't know. I mean, I think we have to see the process play itself out. There's a lot of good people running. I know many of them. I wish all of them well. I think it's going to depend on how they respond to the American people's needs. In particular, I helped write the bill in the House for Medicare for all. John Conyers and I worked together. We introduced it, and others picked up on versions of it. I think health care is a transcendent issue in American politics, and Democrats are split on that. Some have thrown right in with the ranks of the insurance companies. But at least you have Bernie Sanders, and to a lesser extent Elizabeth Warren, who are doing everything they can to keep Medicare for all out there as a possibility. And the money's there in the system, Larry. We're already spending money to have everyone covered. It's just that about almost one out of every $3, at least 30% goes for corporate profits, stock options, executive salaries, advertising, marketing, the cost of paperwork. We could have the healthcare system the American people need. But, if you have Democrats who are already taking a position of no, that kind of fracture within the party takes us away from the potential we have to unify people in a presidential election.
Does that mean that it sounds like you would support Warren?
No, I haven't indicated a preference in this race. I know, I either have met or know most of the candidates. At some point, when the race comes to Ohio, where I am, I may have something to say. But I think that more than me, the candidates need to grow the issues and let the people know what they'll do if they're elected. And I think healthcare is like one of the irreducibly important issues for the American people, as well as the environment. These are things that I want to hear from people, and I want to see the debates sort out the differences between the candidates.
Will Ohio decide our next president?
Yes, I think very much so. Ohio will continue to be a pivotal state. And I'm certainly someone who's very concerned about which way Ohio is going to go, and I'm concerned that the Democratic Party that I'm a member of is going to produce a candidate and a platform who will be able to attract people and give them a reason to vote Democrat.
Do you think your Senator Brown, should have jumped into this?
Well, he had a very good record with labor, and I think that people were hoping he would get in, but he took a look at the field and decided that it wasn't going to be his time. But, he certainly has a record in the Senate that would have recommended him in this field.
What do you think of him?
I've known Sherrod Brown since 1971, 72. We go way back. And, generally speaking, we've been on the same side.
Okay, do you think your party will defeat Trump?
That's not a given. 2020 is very much up for grabs. I don't think that with these impeachment hearings that the Democratic Party is helping itself in the 2020 election. I think they're inadvertently helping to rile up Trump's base, and they may look back at these days in a year and say, what were we thinking? It's going to be a tough race, and it's going to come down to states like Ohio and Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. The race is still up for grabs. There's nothing for sure about this 2020 race we're heading into, Larry.
Dennis, thanks so much for your time today. Always love talking with you.
Well, you know what? To me, wow, I'm with Larry King. Thanks a lot.